Yeah, I made my own. I have to give it a look.
Guys, sit together, grab a shirt.
You don't have to fill out the blue cards?
Yeah. Come on.
Oh, you're kidding. You like football or not?
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm District Secretary Nancy Gamble Hatfield. It's Tuesday, December 17th, 2013, and this is a regular meeting of the Dublin San Ramon Services District Board of Directors. Presiding this evening is President Dawn Benson.
Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order and join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Halkett.
Here.
Director Howard.
Here.
Director Duarte.
Here.
Vice President Von Leopold. Here. President Benson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to special announcements. Number 4, nothing? Okay, great. Public comment. I don't know if we have 2 blue cards for these gentlemen.
No.
Mr. and Mr. Halkett. Okay.
We most definitely do not.
I know we have some audience members tonight. Mr. Morrison, happy holidays.
Thank you.
And Mr. DeLay. Okay, we'll go to number 6, reports.
Yes, President Benson and members of the board, a few things for your consideration in your calendar tonight. On January 30th, which is a Thursday afternoon at 6 p.m. at the Dublin City Hall, the district, along with at least Zone 7, Pleasanton, and Livermore, will be sponsoring a public meeting related to the California Water Action Plan. But more importantly, California Secretary of Resources, John Laird, will be speaking at the meeting. He's accepted our invitation to speak. The purpose is a public meeting for information transfer to interested parties in the Tri-Valley about this important document that will explain how the various water issues on DCT, the water bond, recycled water issues relate to the big picture. So put that in your calendar for now. We have it tentatively scheduled for 6. I understand from his staff at that time they need to shift around any place from 30 minutes to 90 minutes depending on the schedule, but we'll get that tied down as it gets closer, but definitely put that date on your schedule. I think that's going to be an important evening and kind of a very interesting evening as well. Secondly, Aqua held an election for its president and vice president as part of its conference back a couple weeks ago. The presidential election was uncontested, and I voted for John Coleman per the board direction. Of course, since it was uncontested, John won handily. The vice president election, however, was contested. I voted for Piers Swan of Irvine Ranch Water District per board directive, but Kathy Teagues from Cucamonga County Water District was the winner, largely on the strength of some pretty strong Southern California support for her position. So that's it. And Piers was very gracious in his concession speech. Next item, the California Urban Water Conservation Council recently held an election for what it calls its Group 1 Board of Directors, which are basically public agencies that are members of that group. The ballot was not available until December 4th. The election was December 12th. There was really no time to calendar this for board or water committee consideration. So in that situation, with that timing, per the board policy, the general manager's delegated authority to cast the district's ballot, provided that I report to the board about my action. So that's what I'm doing tonight. The election was essentially 4 people for 3 seats. It was a little more complicated than that, but that's basically what it boiled down to. We cast our vote for Carrie Pollard from the Sonoma County Water Agency, Joe Bird from the Municipal Water District of Orange County, and for Jason Foster with the San Diego County Water Authority. The first two individuals were won. Mr. Foster did not win. Mr. Tim Barr from Western Municipal was in fact elected. I talked to Dan Gallagher and everybody feels very comfortable with Tim. It was a matter of degree, so there's really no issues there. Just for the record, I'm reporting how we cast our vote by organization. Next item is the district office will be closed for business starting at about noon on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve this year. It's not a paid holiday. The employees will either have to take leave if they wish to go home or stay on the job. It's just an opportunity to relax our coverage requirements a little bit and give people an opportunity to spend time with their families on what's historically a very low volume day in terms of, in fact, non-existent volume time for people walking into the office. Lastly, I would note that just today the announcement came in, and you'll have a copy in your Friday delivery. Mayor Tim Sobrani will be delivering the State of the City address that's sponsored by the Dublin Chamber of Commerce. That's on Wednesday, January 29th at 11:30 at the Shannon Center. If you're interested in attending, let Nancy or I know, and we'll be glad to make reservations for you. I've asked her staff to make a reservation. It's usually a pretty good event. And lastly, there's been no correspondence to or from the board since your last board meeting, at least as of the close of business today. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Any committee reports? No. Agenda management, is there any agenda management?
We will go straight to
Okay, I do have one question on the consent. I'd like to take B out for a few minutes, or I'd like to approve A. Okay, agenda management. 7, approval of minutes. Well, it's agenda management.
I'll move approval.
Okay. Director Von Peter Leopold, Vice President Von Peter Leopold, and seconded by Director Duarte. Okay, do I hear it? All in favor? Aye. So moved. Okay, now I'd like to A. I'd like to remove, or I'd like to pull B out, and I'd like to...
I'm going to pull A.
You're going to pull A. Okay, so C through J. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve C through
Okay,
J.
Director Duarte. Second. And seconded by Vice President Von Peter Leopold. All in favor? Aye. Okay, any no's? No? Okay, so let's start with 8A.
Yeah, just a couple quick items. I'm a little uncomfortable, historically we have approved out-of-state travel as a separate item for both compensation and certainly for a day of service. So I'm personally uncomfortable folding Washington, D.C. conferences into the blanket approval that we really do for administrative ease. So we don't have to approve every time it's available to go to Aqua or to go to Costco conference. And I'd like to hear more about this East Bay Leadership Council. That's a new one. It strikes me as more like a Chamber of Commerce thing, where it's informational and perhaps advocacy and less of an elected official thing. So does anybody have any information about that?
No, just one comment, if I could, on the Aqua and CAS, and they're listed specifically as the February conferences, but that's, I trust you can use that. You just are saying, I think what you're saying, Director Halkin, is pull those out as a separate, standalone agenda.
Well, yeah, and when it comes to, normally we pre-approve, normally something like that, we'd have to, have a finding that, significant district business to send somebody to Washington for both paying them and for paying the, for travel costs. And so
I just want to clarify,
yes.
we tried to limit it to the February one. It's not a blanket approval to go to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, we just have no names associated with it, no business associated with it for this act.
And then with regard to East Bay Leadership Council, you may remember that organization under its previous name, which was Contra Costa Council. The district was a long-standing member of Contra Costa Council. It was sort of a super chamber of commerce in Contra Costa County. We dropped out of that organization in 2009, along with a lot of other organizations at the time, the budget crunch hit and things like that. And as you know, we're gradually starting to get involved in some of these things. So we reconsidered joining, and it turns out that they reinvented themselves, and they cast themselves as the East Bay Leadership Council, which now, in involve not only Contra Costa County, but the Livermore-Amador Valley as well, because the business community is, kind of, there's no county line as you do business across these things. So we've rejoined that organization, and the reason it's on here is because of a separate board approval action in November when a couple of the board members wanted to attend one of their meetings to hear Congressman Swalwell speak. And at that time, the board chose to approve a day of service stipend as well as cover expenses for that November meeting. So I just sort of paralleled that action here and included it both in the day of service as well as in the expense thing. So I was just kind of following what I was seeing as board past practice.
Kind of makes sense, but it sounds more like a chamber thing, which if I understand correctly, the chamber, we pay for the lunch, pay to get there, but we don't pay the day of service.
That is correct.
Yes. Okay. So do I hear any discussion? Or motion?
I'll move approval of 8A.
Okay. So do I have any discussion?
I'd like to make a substitute motion, please. I'll move approval of 8A.
First we have to handle this one, right?
No?
No? Okay.
Inside.
Yep.
Make a substitute
Inside.
motion, please. I'll move approval of 8A, striking day of service at this time for the February conference and for the East Bay Leadership Council.
And that would be the February Washington DC conference
For both.
for both CASA and Aqua.
Those can be handled under a different action, in my opinion. So strike those from this item and the East Bay Leadership Conference as a day of service pre-approved.
I'll second.
Okay.
Now discussion.
Now discussion. Any discussion?
I just think I'm going along with what you said about reversing our opinion or our leadership. We approved both of these just last month.
Well, we approved. Leadership Council was a one-timer. I was a little preoccupied, or I might have spoken about it. And we've never pre-approved attendance to an out-of-state conference under a blanket item.
No, you're true. That's correct on that one. But the November one we had already approved, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
I don't think we're talking about unapproving November. We're talking, this is for
No,
2015.
I know.
Okay.
It's for 2014.
I mean, frankly, I don't know how often these folks meet. They sound a lot more like the chamber than the local CSDA or something.
Well, there's definitely the movers and the shakers that are business people, but the city councils are involved as well as some other utility districts.
Right, and people are totally welcome to attend. I think, depending on how 8B plays out, they're totally welcome to get paid for their lunch. I just don't see, with this particular organization, at least as I understand it right now, I don't see a particular nexus between our business and day of service. I mean, we're not casting votes, we're not operating in any kind of policy-making perspective. It's purely information.
Any other comments? Okay. I have to agree too. It's not really about policy. It's more of a extended outreach for the area. So I can understand both sides. As for the Washington and conferences for Aqua and CASA, if I can understand pulling those out as well, making those separate. If indeed we do have business, and that should be dealt with differently or separately in a separate board item. Any other discussion?
Well, I think rethinking that the November decision, I think, now that I look at it, I think I would agree with Fairway Hawkins. But if someone wants to take the time out of their schedule to go back east for a CASA or an Aqua conference, I think that unless you've done it, it's not a pleasure trip. It's business and it's work, especially the legislature. So
Well, I mean, to clarify, I mean, I totally support sending board members or staff to any conference, any place, anywhere in the world. It makes sense for our business. But historically, when we send somebody out of state, we have a finding that's separate with their names on it, and the reason that we do these things. And so it's not the attendance at the conference gives me pause. It's
Procedure.
it's doing it in a blanket way on a consent calendar. I prefer to actually have a reason to send somebody to Washington. If we have a reason to send somebody to Washington, I'll vote for it twice.
Would you consider splitting your motion?
Into,
Two separate issues, the Washington issue and the East Bay Leadership Council?
I figure out how to do it.
That would be
You amend your
I
substitute
think
motion.
you're- I
And then we
think
would-
If you were amenable, you would amend the substitute motion, and then you have to get the concurrence of the
All right, I'll do anything to support the vice
I have a
president.
quick, I have a quick question, though. I have some discussion too. Now, for purposes of trying to get a good rate on airfare and such like that, the February conferences are generally at the end of the month of
At the end.
February. So by not approving it now, we would have to approve something like this in January, which could either make the registration fee hike up and/or airfare and hotel much more expensive. Is that correct?
Here's what I'm thinking about, very similar to that. I'm not worried so much about the airfare, because frankly, airfare to DC is never cheap, is never discounted, so I'm not too worried about that. Hotel reservations for this conference, the cheap block of hotel reservations are going pretty fast. Matter of fact, staff took the liberty of making a couple of hotel reservations, because you can always cancel those, so we have those hotel reservations made already. I think that's correct. I'm looking for Nancy. I think I told somebody to go ahead and do that. So, so you've got your hotel costs tied down. One of the things we're looking at, though, in a purely procedural thing, is we're looking at the upcoming business district, and you can see that on the last consent calendar item. The first meeting in January is pretty slim right now, and we're actually thinking we may not need that first meeting in January of the board. We may just roll into the second meeting in January. That would put the approval of the February conference awful close to where I feel uncomfortable with asking you that late, for things.
What's the difference in cost by doing it now versus later?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think it'd be that significant, because we have the hotels reserved already.
No, but what about conference costs? Because sometimes,
There's
no? Okay.
probably, it's probably, if anything, it's
$50, $100.
Yeah, but it's not that much. I would be more just concerned with having formal board approval,
So-
4 weeks before the event, right? If
So-
you can't.
So all right, so let me amend my amended, or whatever the right term is.
Substitute motion.
I'm gonna substitute.
Substitute the motion.
We can have a substitute motion to substitute for the
All
substitute
right,
motion.
so we're gonna do this in 3 parts. Approve the day of service for all the items except for the pre-approval of the February Washington DC conference, and except for the East Bay Leadership Council. And I would like to take a vote on the East Bay Leadership Council separately, and a vote on the February Washington DC conference pre-approval separately. So I know it's a complicated motion. Nancy, you feel comfortable? Carl, you okay with the way I phrased it?
And I'll second.
Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I just want to clarify. So what you're voting on right now is everything that's listed here except the 2 references to February and the East Bay.
And East Bay Leadership, yep.
And then if I could give a slight nudge to the chair, the order I would take it in is I would do the everything, and then I would do the other 2 items separately.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
You're doing great.
Our minds are in sync.
So I have a motion out there which is way too complicated for this item.
The motion would be the Aqua in California, Casa in California, California Special District, State, Alameda, and Contra Costa chapters, and then Water Reuse State National when held in California, and CSRMA.
And then the other 2 items separately.
So then that would be on the table right now as the motion.
I think, help me out, Carl, I think what happens is you have a substitute motion, you can only do that first part, because if the first part fails, we revert back to the original motion, so you have to do the first part. If the first part prevails, the original motion goes away, then you can introduce the second 2 motions.
Gotta make it complicated, don't we, Mr. Dr. Hopper?
You guys missed me for a meeting, and
I know.
you probably were bored, so.
So now you're going to torture us for this meeting.
I almost pulled a couple
This
words.
is 8A, for heaven's sakes.
I'm going out of consent too, so we're not.
All right, guys, okay.
Okay,
Okay. Aqua California, Casa California, special districts, state, local, county chapters, water association, California water sanitation, CSRMA. I like those. I think they're really great. Let's vote to see if we can pre-approve all those. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I already gave you a second.
We have a second. Motion and a second.
Do I hear all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that one's moot.
May I make a motion?
Were there any, there were no
There were no
votes?
no's.
No abstentions?
You know
No
what?
abstentions.
Just because I'm feeling like I have the ball, I will actually make the motion for February Washington DC pre-approval.
I'll second. Okay. Do I hear all in favor? Aye.
No.
Okay, one abstention.
No.
I mean,
No.
one no. Sorry.
Made a motion and they said.
Okay.
no.
Because I, out of deference to
Motion.
His motion was for the two, the Alco and Cox. Okay, great. Now we're on to the
Who
third.
was the second for that?
Georgine.
East Bay Leadership Council.
What about it?
Do I hear a
I'll
motion?
move we include it.
Do I hear a second?
No, I made it.
Georgine made it for East Bay Leadership Council. Do I hear
To approve.
to approve a day of leadership?
Day of service.
Day of service. Do I hear a second? Okay. So,
Motion dies for lack of a second.
that's correct. So that one's done.
That was fun. You pulled me, I'll let you talk.
President Besser,
Start your engine.
If I could, for
Yes, sir.
AB, given what you decided on East Bay Leadership Council, we would need to add East Bay Leadership Council to the third bullet here, because otherwise, it was being covered the way we wrote it as a meeting which is eligible for a day of service. Since it's no longer eligible for a day of service, you need to articulate to add.
So we need to add that.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
If that's what you intend to do.
okay. Okay, so I move, let's see here. I had a question, so. On this item, do I hear a motion?
Well, let me ask a question also.
I think we have to do a motion, then we have discussion, right?
Questions? Or is that's the proper?
The proper way is we have to do
procedure,
a
But we
mo-
haven't
yes.
followed it.
I read it. Okay, so do I hear a motion for AB?
I'll move.
Okay, do I hear a second?
With East Bay Leadership
With the
Council.
East Bay Leadership Council included.
Heck, I'll second that.
Okay. All right, so let's have discussion.
Well, my question is, so, since we passed an 8AA,
Mhm.
going to Washington, so the compensation here would also apply to Washington.
Travel.
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 Because that would be a meeting which you're eligible for a day of service.
Okay, so that's taken care of.
Yep.
And we've also taken care of the East Bay Leadership Council through the amended.
Right, we've included that.
That's my
approved.
question.
Okay, now I have a question on, I have two questions. And I was wondering if we wanted to send this policy back in 2014 to look at maybe some ways to include some lodging verbiage that offers a nominal fee to maybe staying with a relative in lieu of staying at a hotel. Because sometimes that's cheaper, and it would be simply,
Always.
always. So, and, you know, like $50 or something, you know, it would have to be, but have somebody look at that and see if there's an allowable per diem for staying at a family member's home or a friend's home in lieu of paying cost of the lodging. And then the other one is meals, and maybe doing more of a per diem and moving away, I mean, in the event that there's a per diem versus just taking a per diem instead of handing in, and handing in receipts if you have them. And the meals, and I would keep the 12, the 16, and the 34, because a lot of times the breakfasts and lunches are included in the conference, but only are per diem paid for those meals that are out of pocket for the director.
Seems to be we just did some of this. What committee normally handles this?
This would be handled by external affairs.
External affairs.
Okay, then why don't we agree to assign it to external affairs?
Okay. For
I
2014.
want to discuss pennies and dollars and stuff here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you really aren't agendized to discuss the policy. The policy
Right.
is just there for information, but certainly it's appropriate to refer to this committee. In fact, Nancy and I were talking today about which policies we're going to queue up for review in 2014. So it's more pleasure we can add this policy with those two notes for 2014 and see where that discussion goes.
Okay. Otherwise,
I would just ask the external affairs, keep in mind the IRS when you're talking about reimbursements versus fees. Just keep that in mind.
yep. Okay, so at this point, we're back to the motion at hand. Do I hear all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? Okay, so passed. All right, now we're moving on. Thank you. Board business, 9A, discuss the draft board correspondence policy. And that would be Mr. Burt.
Just want to make a couple of notes. Thank you. Yes, President Benson and members of the board, we have actually two policies in front of you, 8A and 8B, 9A and 9B, that actually work together a little bit like 8A and 8B. You have to read both of them together to understand what we're talking about. Item 9A is the board correspondence policy. Item 9B is the board member guidelines. Both policies were up for review in 2013. The board correspondence policy was actually up for review 1 year after it was last revised. It was revised in the summer of 2012 to address electronic means of communication. The board adopted the policy then and basically asked us to come back to you in about a year and tell you how we thought it was working. Well, we did that in June and hoped we didn't think it was working very well. So we suggested a few changes. The board agreed. We referred that back to the External Affairs Committee, and I think we basically streamlined it to more one of suggested protocols when you're dealing with correspondence to and from a board member as opposed to correspondence to and from a board. When it's correspondence to and from the board, the whole board should have an opportunity to weigh into that. If it's correspondence to the board, the whole board should hear it. But if one of you is talking and communicating with your constituents, you shouldn't have to get the whole board to approve that communication and report it back. I would caution that, yes, we believe those are still public records, and if you were asked for them, you would still have to produce them. You usually maintain those in accordance with the district's retention policy, but administratively, it was becoming unworkable for staff to be in the middle of that whole process of every time you want to communicate with one of your constituents. So we basically retooled this, we being the External Affairs Committee and staff, retooled this to focus it on board as a whole correspondence rather than board member correspondence. And then a few of the sort of suggestions about the correspondence didn't seem to be appropriate in a proscriptive type of policy, so we were proposing to go over to the board guidelines as suggestions for style. So that's basically what we did. We had a couple discussions with the External Affairs Committee, actually 3 discussions with the External Affairs Committee, and 1 with the board starting in June. I think the Personnel Committee feels they're just about done with these, but before they were going to present them to the full board for approval in nice format, they asked them to just come back to the board one more time and see if this really did for you collectively what you told us to try to do in June before the board last talked about it. With any input you get from us, we'll either go back to the committee, or if you tell us it's fine, or make a change here and there, we'll finalize that and bring it back to the board for January.
So it's not personnel, it's external.
External.
Just to clarify for anybody watching. Okay. Okay, so do I hear a motion?
No, it's just
No, it's just a discussion. informational.
If there's something you didn't like here, had a question as to why it was written some way, or had a better idea, now would be appropriate.
Okay, open for discussion.
Anyway, as part of the external affairs, Bert pretty well summed it up. Basically, we want to have you take a look at this, see if you like it, and if you have any objections, let me know, or if you think we're there, then we can just run along.
I have one quick question, and it's like, I know we were talking about doing a board email address. If that's the case, then we would have to have some sort of way to check it, correct?
Yeah,
And what would
right
that
now,
be?
our,
I don't want to get into details.
our website and our IT system does not accommodate very easily, in fact, it's extremely clunky, we tried this once before, for an external party such as the board to access email via the district's email system. Our new website will eliminate those bottlenecks, make it much smoother, so when that website is launched, then we'll have emails set up, Duarte at DSRSD.com. On a web page, a person can click on that, you'll get an email, you can check your email, you can respond to the email. It'll also help a little bit with the record keeping because the district will then, on our IT system, have those records of that correspondence, etc. And the committee asked us to try to expedite that within the limits of the modifications to the IT system.
It's our feeling that when those website addresses are available, it should eliminate a lot of the roadblocks that we have here in the monitoring of business correspondence between the board and any constituent or between each other.
Okay.
We think it will operate sort of seamlessly, like we have a mobile device right now and you have Comcast or Gmail or something, you go directly to your mobile device or at home, it'll operate very similar to that.
It'll be
Although
web-based
electronically,
application.
it'll go through our system.
Okay. It'll be a web-based application that we log into, basically. Okay. Any questions? Any other
I
discussion?
think external affairs and mail policy. I mean, my whole desire was to free up the ability to be able to communicate with people, not as a board or in official capacity, but just interacting with constituents without feeling the need to share with everybody in the world. So I think you guys did a good job.
Yeah, good job. Kudos.
So I'd go impressed with that. I'd support that. Okay, about it. I would say.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, me too.
I see everybody nodding their heads, we'll bring this back for
Okay. All right, good. So now we'll go on and move to 9B. Discuss the draft guidelines for conducting Dublin San Ramon Services District Business Policy.
Mr. President, that's our members of the board. I could make the same speech about this procedurally. When the board looked at this, the committee talked about it 3 times. One of the big charges the board gave us was to try to retool the way the committees worked. And that's a big part of this effort. Now, this document that you have in front of you is not ready, it's not, as we used to say back in the day, it's not camera ready for your action, because the committee said, well, we're not sure the board is going to go along with this, so don't spend a lot of time interweaving into the document this new way the committees will work. Let's see if it meets what the board wants to do. If it does, we'll go ahead and spend the time reading that language into the board document, into the policy. I would call those structural changes, which I think really is the heart of what the committee talked about. It's page 50 of 50, it's the last one. It's sort of a standalone document right now that will eventually work into the policy. Basically what this does is it says that all items will go directly to the board first. We have some statistics that we looked at. It turns out that about 85% of the things that have gone to the board over the last year, we think could have either gone to the board without a committee review simply because they were non-controversial, they were on consent calendar. We think we could have done away with about 85% of the business that went to the committee. So the first shot is everything would go to the board first. If something If you pass it, great. If the board wants to refer that item back to a committee, that's certainly your prerogative. You would say, please refer this back to the External Affairs Committee. Just like you said, the External Affairs Committee would then take up that matter with that charge, work on it, it would come back up to the board. So in some cases, it creates a three-step, but when you think we're getting rid of about 85% of our business, then we normally run through, I think that'll be a work savings. Now, having said that, there's a list of about 8 items that the committee felt are just kind of the nature that should always originate with the committee first. I mean, the charters of the committee. Why would a board talk about the charter of the committee? Let the committee do that business first. And some very complicated things, rates and fees. I suggested that because those conversations are always so extremely complex. We need sort of the informality of the committee to kind of kick those ideas around before we even formulate anything intelligent for the board to talk about. Same thing with labor matters and budgetary matters and things like that. So there's a few things we carved out as we could go directly to committee and start the discussion. But with the exception of that list of things, you may want to add an item or two more, perhaps one. We felt everything could go to the board first. The board will knock off most of the stuff. What they don't will be referred to the committee. We'll work on it and take it back. This was really the heart of what the committee talked about. I can go through some of the other changes that we did, but this was really the most substantive changes. The other ones were a lot of cleanups and administrative streamlined changes to the
I do have one question. Does anybody have any questions?
First, yeah, I was trying to write to 50 of 50. I think this is well along the lines of at least what I was envisioning. It's kind of changing the default mindset of the organization to go to the board as the default, you go to the committee as the exception, which I think makes more sense. I mean, as we're broadcasting and doing more work together as 5 colleagues versus, at weird times of the week during the committee. The one thing I would, you didn't say it explicitly, but I think it was implicit. If something comes to the board, it can be referred to a committee, or the board can hash it out then and there. Now, if it comes to the point where we have to draft a new resolution or get that point, maybe we have to come back again. But if there's a middle ground, it's not like vote yes or no, or it goes to committee, we can actually figure it out. So I totally support this. This is great.
This is great.
The other one, I struggle finding the page, and it probably doesn't need. There's a page in here about, on 26 and 50.
This one.
And you've heard my rant before, and I won't rant, I promise.
26 or 50.
Is someplace in this document, or I would like to acknowledge the fact that meetings of the board are to do the board's business and the district's business, and the people in the audience of the district are very important. The extended TV audience is important, but we have to not wrap ourselves too much around the axle of changing the way we operate to make sure that the TV works. A prime example was when we were looking at the logos about 5 meetings ago. And we're all struggling, looking, and we're like stapled to our seats because we're so afraid of what the camera was showing, where I really just wanted to put them against the wall, turn the lights on, and go wander around and actually look at the logos up close. So we have to live in the fact that we have these meetings, and we need the meetings to be efficient to get our work done. And the TV audience is important, but that's not the primary importance. The primary importance is actually to finish our business and do it as efficiently as possible, and do it and do it in a way that we get the best outcome. I don't think it needs to be in a document for this. I want to get off my chest with that. So the committee stuff, great. I know we're going to be doing more videoing. We'll probably improve it and have cameras and such, but just, at least in my heart, I think the meetings are to get business of the district done, and if somebody wants to watch it on TV, that's great. We'll do the very best chance we can, but we have to get it done.
Okay. Any questions? Any other discussion?
Well, I think what Rich is saying that if the presence of the camera, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the presence of the camera inhibits us from effectively doing our work. That's what you object to. I sympathize with you. If the prime reason for that camera is that we remain transparent, the media has to be transparent. We all know that. But I'm not sure how we can accommodate the move that you're talking about.
That's the way it moves. It's just a mindset. I mean, something as simple as if people get out of our chairs and they look at the logos, I felt constrained. And I actually kind of said, let's just get up and look at the logos, and people look at me like I was speaking in German.
Yeah.
And I don't speak German that well. So this is going to be the form to figure that out. Eventually, someday, when finances improve, we have better technology, and the cameras can pan and move, kind of like a school district or a city council. Remember, they get money from the outside, so it's not fully funded by their districts. Then they'll be looking at this an issue. But with the technology we have today, just bear in mind that we have to focus on getting our business done in real time here in the boardroom. Otherwise, this is great stuff.
No argument there.
No argument there, but we also do have our agendas published, so if somebody's interested in looking at us online as well as looking at the board packet, they can see a lot of that information in there too.
I think that once eventually that we're televised and the cameras are set, we'll solve some of Rich's problem because the cameras end up focusing on the screen such that the council or the board can get up and look at things and the audience will still see certain things. What always worries me about going on TV is, I hope we don't have this happen, but I guess it's human nature, is that everybody feels compelled to say something, even if it's the same thing and even if we all approve. That happens at every single public meeting that's televised. So I hope we don't get to that point because our wonderful meetings that are over quickly will drag.
Right. And I think we've all respected that.
Is there any specific feedback you're looking for from us?
No, I think actually
I think
the
it's one
comments you
question.
made here and the comments that someone made back at the end, I think we can kind of work those into the final draft in some ways, guidelines.
Well, I have one question on 49 and 50, the district furnished devices and service. Just my own discussion or thought on this one is that if indeed we say that the directors will not get any district-owned devices like an iPad or anything in lieu of maybe sending out packets at some point, maybe we could be more green. But I just like to understand why this was included when eventually we're trying to move to a green, and that's the district furnished devices or service. I know that many other districts or councils have devices issued to them. I know we've been pretty good about not using those, but my idea is eventually if we can not have to pay for a courier service to deliver our packets and we have the opportunity to put them online and we can pull them online.
If this is just a guideline and it basically says district does not, it doesn't say the district shall not as in a policy. So I think it's just kind of pointing out what's going on here, the status quo.
I guess I thought it more that it does say the district won't do it, will not issue them. So I just thought as we move forward in efficiency and trying to, the courier service is nice. I think there's other ways at some point we might be able to get our packets a little bit more cost effective and maybe make it easier, a little bit easier for staff. So that's just my thought on that item. Any discussion?
Yeah, just one reflection I have on that. You're really focusing on the second sentence of that first paragraph. And we talked about this with the committee, but as I kind of read it with what you're saying in mind, the way the sentence is written, we're kind of making a budgetary decision in the middle of a policy, which is probably not the cleanest thing to do. I'm not saying that what you're saying is right or what you're saying is
I just think the wordsmithing could be a little
We
different.
could just eliminate that second sentence and it wouldn't change its policy at all. And then, if the board wants to, have access to the internet versus district-owned devices, we would just calendar that for an agenda item and we'd be talking about it. If you chose to, then it's done. If you chose not to, that's done. But it wouldn't be embedded in, it's sort of a purchasing decision, not embedded in a policy. So,
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly.
That's good.
I think that's good, because it's budget work, yeah, that's exactly what I was, okay.
Yeah, I would suspect that among the bylaws, they'll probably give different opinions as to whether the district should furnish such devices.
But by not putting that sentence
I just
in
don't
there,
want
it
it to
doesn't change.
close the idea of,
Right.
yeah, it's more like, I know some of us have our own too, so. Okay, so I think that's about it. Any other discussion?
This one might take me a little bit longer to get back to the board in January, just because of me getting a week, some of the stuff that we have forgotten. But we'll get that process going. I think it's straight enough. Straight enough. I think it's straight enough. We can get that back to work.
Okay.
Okay. I love our visitors tonight, they're so,
Where's the camera? Is it high enough up where he's in it?
And the camera is right below the clock. See?
Okay. So
Oh, okay, good.
Okay. Guys, remember, don't touch. You look, don't touch.
Okay.
All right.
okay, good. Gentlemen, you're,
Let's move on, guys.
all right.
I'm starting to lose my audience here.
Yes, we do. Okay, so at this point, 9C, I would like this is the selection of the president and the vice president of the board of directors.
I'd like to nominate Georgine Von Leopold.
So right here, second. Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. And also I'd like to,
If we can do that.
and what about vice president?
I would like to nominate Ed Morphy as our vice president.
I second. Okay.
Yes, sir, you're president.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Board.
Yes. So I second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And at this time, I would like to hand the gavel to President Von Leopold, and she will run the rest of the meeting. Thank you. And I want to tell everybody thank you very much for your support. And it's been fun, a really good opportunity, and I'm really happy Georgine stepping in. So congratulations. Thank you.
6:47 p.m. for those who are counting.
Okay, well, 9C technically is the election, but it is also my suggestions for appointments to the committee. If you've had an opportunity to look at it, the formal approval.
It's 19. There you go.
Okay, then I got to be able to help us for it. That is the appointment, or my recommendation for the appointment to the committees. This will have to be technically approved at the next meeting, but for right now, these are my recommendations.
No, you can approve it. Yeah, you can approve it tonight.
All right.
Go for it.
Move approval with a comment. I'm really excited to go face all my friends in Val Vista as a member of the wastewater committee. Too big for an interesting year.
That was on purpose, you know.
I totally get that. They're actually lovely people, and I
did try
I
as...
always like to be snarky at all, so I move approval.
And I'll second. I'll second.
No, it's traditional for you to.
I'm happy with, I'd second.
Okay, now.
I'd like to second that motion.
The summary and rec pointed out, I did try to have one person on the committee that had been on the committee before, so that there was some difference. And I did want to see some changes in the liaisons to the other organizations, just so we could all feel as if we're participating in more of the business. You get so focused on your committee sometimes that you forget other things are going on. So I hope this meets with everybody's approval.
It does.
And then I will ask for a vote, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried.
And President Von Leopold, appreciate having that honor to address you as such. It's been a lot of years since we've
Yeah.
I'm going to pass down a sample calendar. One of the things that we need to do is get the committee meeting scheduled as quickly as possible so we can keep running at the first of the year. What we have here, if you grab one and take it down, are the current slots for each of the committees. It would be ideal if you could all accommodate each one of those current slots. I know that's probably not going to happen. But please take a look at them and get back to me as soon as you can if you can't meet a slot. Don't try to work it out among yourselves which one will not work, because there's a lot of interplay here. For example, a committee meeting on Friday doesn't work because there's no way we can prepare for the subsequent board meeting or some other issues like that. So there's only a limited number of time slots that do work. So if something doesn't work for you, let me know that that doesn't work. When I have everybody's input, then I will sort of play the scheduling game and try to accommodate everybody's needs. And we'll let you know. And if you could give me that tonight, that would be wonderful.
I'll let anybody know that if you need a specific time, such as Rich, because you're working, or Dawn, even Dawn, go right ahead. I mean, I have absolutely nothing encumbering my calendar these days, so I can be as flexible as you need to be.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, because I'll need a 5:30.
So not Dawn, but Georgine and Ed, if you could, if you know your schedule, give these back to us, we can get that process going.
Okay.
All right, cool.
All right, we'll move on to board member items. Ed?
That's the report right now.
Pat?
Well, it's the obvious. I'd like to wish everyone happy holidays and kind of safe holidays. It's our last meeting until next year. So everybody be safe and have fun.
I'd like to do the same.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you for the forbearance for the little guys. You behaved pretty well. The other one's going at the end. Happy holidays. I'm doing fine.
Good.
I'll have some more information in January, which I'll share when it's ready to share.
Dawn?
I'd like to also say, I went to the East Bay Leadership meeting, and Congressman Smallville was there, and he spoke about all the different things he's doing. He's handling the immigration, or he's involved in a new, he and a couple of the new people, the new Congress, have created a group that meets and really is from both parties, and they're really trying to bring some unity in the community of the entire House. And so they're the resolution folks, they're getting things done. And so they're looking to meet and discuss some of the issues and bringing the Congress together, which I think is a great idea. He continues to be out in the public. He is amazing. I think he's been a great representative for our area, and I'm real proud he's from Dublin. So it was a great meeting, and I know that I wanted to report back on that. And I also want to wish everybody a wonderful and blessed, happy holidays, and may 2014 be the best for everyone.
Thank you. I only have one thing to report on. On November 20th, I signed up and attended a all-day conference given by the Landscape and Architect Department of Cal, which is celebrating its 100th birthday, which is why they did this. But the topic was the future of concrete channels. And it was very interesting, since one of the things that Jim Coonan used to tell me was to watch out for Zone 7 and spending the kind of money they were going to spend in turning all of our concrete channels back into beautiful riparian areas. That scared me, number one, because the price tag is horrific, and because this used to sit underwater, and I really didn't want those channels to go anywhere. What I found out, though, is that this is a statewide push because those channels are 50 years old and they're crumbling and nobody has the money to repair them. nobody has the money to change them into beautiful riparian creeks either, but it is something that each individual flood control district is going to have to face. The price tag is horrific. However, they're starting a process on the Los Angeles River, which is one of the first ones that was put in concrete. And, you know, we've seen every movie under the sun with a race down in the channel. But they're starting to convert it back way out at its eastern end. And they had the lady that is in charge of that come and talk. But it was a very, very interesting day about how they came to be, what they saw, and now the problem with them deteriorating. So I really enjoyed it, even though I had to walk about 1.5 miles back to my car when it was over, in Berkeley no less. Excuse me, those people who came from Berkeley. So anyway, that's all I have to report. And I too would like to thank staff for a great year, wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and Dawn, on behalf of the board and the staff, we would like to thank you for your year of service. It was a great year.
Thank you.
We accomplished a lot of things, and a lot of it has to do with your energy.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, if there is nothing else, I will adjourn to closed session.
I thought you were going to adjourn.
No, we'll adjourn to closed session.
Yeah, you
Okay.
At this time, we will be going into closed session for one closed session that is listed on the agenda, which is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9, one case.
Okay, I'll figure out. Thank you. Oh, wow.
Her retirement.
John?
Yes?
Oh, no, it says return.
Did you go to the lunch?
Okay.
No.
I didn't either. I was sick. I felt like I
We will exercise the fiction if the signing took place before the transition. How many are you doing now, each? Because I only signed 3 times. But we'll take care of that. I think so. Anyway.
Okay. And I signed that, right?
Signature here. Okay.
It needs to be on the accounts.
Yeah.
And I gave you my November, and I have 2 reports for you.